Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. I'm hoping those of you in the comments who've got 9:30 are full of beans and feel rewarded for having faith in us to arrive at the correct time for a change. So well done to everyone in the sweepstakes who had 9:30. I can't see anyone actually there. Most people thinking we'd be coming in at 9:33, 9:32. How dare you all? How dare you all not believe that we would get here at 9:30? What would make you believe that? Anyway, we've got tons to get on with. We've got tons to talk about. Euan, guys, fire in your questions. We'll try and get through as many of them as we possibly can. So, yes, hit me with whatever you want us to talk about. But we're going to start off with the big story from yesterday, which cannot be ignored. I talked about Saudi madness. I talked about Saudi silliness. We're in the thick of it. The tidal wave has hit us. I suspect it's not going away between now and the end of the transfer window. If I understand how the media works in Scotland, this Saudi thing is going to run and run. It's going to be done to death. We're going to be all sick of it by the end of the transfer window and desperate never to hear the words Saudi Arabia and oil money ever again. But this is the start of it, so I'm not that jaded yet, so we can still tuck into it a little bit. The news broke yesterday that Scott Wright is on a list of Steven Gerrard's at his new Saudi Arabian club, and that Rangers might be receiving a bid for the player to go across there. Now, this was obviously reported during the day yesterday, and then it was taken on as an exclusive by one of the tabloids last night. Listen, all I'm going to say on it is this, and I'll let you come in, Euan, after I've finished my long rambling speech on this one. I would be surprised if Scott Wright ends up in Saudi Arabia. It could happen. It absolutely could happen. And now that I've said it, it probably will. However, just common sense, the Saudi teams are going for world-class stars. You look at the team that Jota's just signed up for. He's going to be playing alongside N'Golo Kante, Karim Benzema. There is significant quality that is being pumped into these teams. We know that they're going for players like Bernardo Silva, although I don't think that's actually going to come off for them. Anyone who's a free transfer, anyone has been linked. I don't think Scott Wright would be a priority target for teams going in those areas. I think if Gerrard is going to try and bring players from Rangers, from Scotland, it'll be the top players. It won't be someone who can't get a game. So just to me, it just doesn't feel right. Now, he might well be on a hugely long list. Number one, I would say, where's that information coming from? Is that information coming from Steven Gerrard? Because pretty sure no one in Scottish journalism or very few people are actually tapped into Steven Gerrard. No one that I'm aware of. So you're presuming it's coming from a different end. So I just don't think the story makes an awful lot of sense. So I'm going to say that I don't think it'll happen. I may be proved completely wrong. I'm not saying there's no truth in it. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is I'll be surprised if Scott Wright is pictured in Saudi Arabia with a scarf above his head. Euan?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. You know, initially, I think I said yesterday that I thought it was unrealistic for this to be the truth, but it obviously picked up momentum. It's been reported in another publication last night. I think it was. I don't know if it was a 10:30 exclusive or I can't remember if it was or it wasn't. But I actually looked yesterday, and so Max Power, who plays for Wigan, has actually just moved to Saudi Arabia. However, he's went to a second-tier team who are coached by Robbie Fowler. So you might see players who aren't, viewed as some of the best players in the world or elite players moving to Saudi Arabia. I just think the Scott Wright one is exactly what you said. I mean, I doubt it came from Steven Gerrard, and I doubt it came from anyone in Saudi Arabia. So, it's something I need to look into today and try and find out if there's any truth behind it. But I mean, I think the words were hearing yesterday there was nothing in it. So, But maybe that's changed. The fact that it was reported in the media last night gives it a bit more weight. But you obviously see everything on social media, and people are saying it's all came from a parody account. I have no idea where the stories came from. So there you go.
I don't think it's come from that parody account.
No, neither do I.
No, I think that's just an added level of intrigue, but probably just sheer coincidence. I suspect that there is certainly information coming from somewhere, put it that way. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. That Saudi Arabia has multiple leagues, just like Scotland, and there is teams spending money all through that football environment, that football landscape. And it may well be that I suppose that second tier players are part of a next phase. But I would just be surprised if it was specifically one of the players that Rangers would be looking to offload, who has been struggling to get into the team and who would be a perfect one for Rangers to get out. I think if Saudi Arabian money is coming in to Ibrox, it's more likely that it's going to be for players that Rangers don't want to lose, given the kind of money that they're talking about, given the kind of backing that there is. Remember, these clubs are state-owned and state-operated, and this is all part of a 2030 vision to completely radicalize and change the direction of the Saudi economy. This is a larger project than just football, and it's certainly got more weight, I think, than the Chinese Super League, which started to burn extremely brightly and then faded away quite quickly. This is part of a bigger picture of Saudi control over sport. You're seeing it with Live Golf and the PGA Tour merging in golf, and I think this is the beginnings of real power plays within football. And I would not be surprised to see Saudi by 2025 being regarded as one of the threatening leagues to come into the top 5 in world football, because the amount of money they have can just blow everyone else away. Now, there's a lot of players that they brought, like Ronaldo, like Benzema, who are obviously not what they once were, but are still extremely good players. It's when they start to be able to tempt players at their peak, that's when I think you'll start to say, right, well, this is absolutely real. But they're never going to be able to do that right now. You're not going to be able to persuade an Erling Haaland at his age, with all the things in front of him that he has, to up sticks and go to Saudi. I don't think that's going to happen until he's a bit older. But it might get to a stage where Saudi has spent so much money that they can pick and choose because the league is the best. Looking at my crystal ball, I suspect that there won't be much to dissuade the guys who are behind it, the money that's behind it, from getting in on huge levels of spending that will ensure that they get there.
Yeah, I don't think you've seen any top people point to Karim Benzema being the current Ballon d'Or player. I understand that, but if you look at England and look at the big clubs in England, you've not really seen any of their top players move. I know people like Ziyech and Kante went, but Kante wasn't really playing last season. I know he was injured, but he's coming towards the end of his career. I don't think you've seen any of the top players in the English Premier League make the move over at the moment. But I mean, just going back to Scott Wright, I mean, initially I didn't think that it had any legs. Obviously, that story came out last night. You probably put more weight behind it than during the day. I know there's lots of kind of arguing on social media about, is it true, is it not true, who wrote the story and all that. I'm not going to get involved in anything like that. But just generally, I would be very surprised. I still insist I'd be very surprised, but you don't know. I think the report last night stated it wasn't just Gerrard's club that had interest in him. So you imagine it's coming from the player side, and there might be genuine interest in him there.
Yeah, listen, Euan, we've talked about what it's going to be like a feeding frenzy in terms of the media. We both understand the media landscape, both of the kind of subscription website like we're doing now and the kind of clickbait websites. We understand those. But it's the same feeding frenzy for agents, because they'll all be immediately seeing phenomenal opportunities to take players out to Saudi Arabia and get them the kind of contract that they would never be able to secure in European football.
Yeah, if you're an agent, you're probably not doing your job if you're not looking for those channels and seeing if there is a possible move there, because it's life-changing money for players. So if you're an agent and you're able to get your player moved to Saudi Arabia, I think it's a pat in the back, isn't it? Especially at certain levels, the money over there is ridiculous. Ultimately football's a game, and players have ambitions to win the big trophies, etc., etc. But it's also a short career. Players generally retire between kind of 35 and 40. The money footballers get in Scotland is good, compared to kind of normal salaries and other industries. But I mean, it's not as if the players in Scotland are on the sort of money that players in England are on. So, if your player can move to Saudi Arabia, then I think you've seen it. I think most fans understand it. You've seen the kind of reaction to the rumours yesterday. Most fans can completely understand it, because it's just logic.
Yeah. Aldo the Sniper McNaught, thank you for signing up, by the way, Aldo. I noticed that you'd joined our membership scheme yesterday. Jonny, did Dell land safe in Bangkok? I can confirm that I did indeed speak to Derek late last night. Well, it wasn't that late, actually, to be fair. But it was something like 12:30 his time. He'd been up for about 40 hours. And he sounded a little bit groggy. And I don't know if he'd had a few pints out and seeing the wild and wacky sights of Bangkok. But he was certainly safe, tucked up in bed in his hotel room, and phoned me last thing to tell me he was off to see the bridge over the River Kwai today as part of the Orsa festivities, which sounds amazing. And for anyone who's a film buff like me, going to see that scene, a World War II buff as well, it would be phenomenal. And I think he's going to do a few TikToks and things like that about his travels. So you'll get to sort of live vicariously through what Derek's doing, and there'll be tons and tons of videos coming in the days ahead. A few comments coming in. James Strachan saying Buff might go to a Saudi club. I'd be amazed if his agents weren't pushing that. Absolutely amazed. That would be an ideal move for Alfredo Morelos. We know that one of the actually very positive things about his character is that he spends a lot of his money investing in his local village and making sure the people of Kerete have the kind of facilities that can help inspire the next Alfredo Morelos to come through. So I would not be surprised if Alfredo Morelos was attracted to the prospect of an 80 or a 90 or £100,000 a week to sign on in Saudi Arabia. I would expect him to be going for that, and I would not be surprised in one bit if that was his next destination. Gavin Sloan saying Glenn Kamara would be more realistic with regards to Steven Gerrard. I'd certainly probably agree with that. I think Kamara fits more the Saudi profile as a secondary standard quality of player, but I don't think that's been mooted anywhere. It's just common sense would tell you that would make more sense. And then Ian Thompson coming in saying, my worry is Gerrard goes in for Tav. Hopefully Tav will see the big picture and stay. I've got to say, Ian, if the big picture for Tav is 100 grand a week, I think the big picture is that you sign the contract, unfortunately. He'll still leave a Hall of Famer. But I think we're a long way away of talking about whether realistically James Tavernier would be bid for in the first place. But, with Steven Gerrard, as we said yesterday, he does like players he knows. He's got a history of going in for players he knows. And I just think you've got to be realistic about it and say, well, Tavernier's 31, coming up for 32. If a huge money deal comes in, then you have to look at it. You have to, at the very least, discuss it. Kev Armstrong asking, how is Ryan Kent ended up in Turkey and not Saudi? That's an interesting one, Kev. I've got to be honest. I think somewhere in Turkey, Ryan Kent's probably crying into a cup of tea right now, thinking that he's maybe just missed the boat by a couple of weeks, because I'm sure he's handsomely remunerated. And let's be honest, he's in a great city at a great club. But the opportunity to change your life and probably change your kids' life and their kids' life with the kind of money we're talking about might never come again. But listen, let's be honest. I don't think Ryan Kent's going to be short of a quid or two if you fancy a pint down the pub, is he? He's not going to be raking around in the back of his sofa for some spare change. I've got Demo coming in saying, have you heard from Derek? I take it, did he get to Bangkok? Okay, he did indeed. So, listen, let's get to some of the questions that are coming in. Curtis Agnew asking, is nobody looking into financial fair play? There's no way the Saudis can afford all this other than money being pumped in by means other than football. Well, Euan, these clubs are state-run, so they find ways, don't they?
Yeah, I think we've seen that in these shows as well with a certain European champions at the moment. Who's, how many is it? 115 charges they're facing.
Yeah.
For financial doping. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that's going to come into it.
Yeah.
As well, financial fair play.
Yeah, exactly, which they're not part of. However, I do feel, and I think we've talked about this before on the channel, if you start to think about what the long game might be for a Saudi Arabia, I would not be surprised if the long game was Turkey's not part of. Is Turkey part of Europe? Is Russia part of Europe? Is
I think it's going to be playing
Saudi Arabia be part of Europe? Because Israel's part of Europe. I would not be surprised if fundamentally that's where we're heading. Saudi clubs in the Champions League. That's where they want to fundamentally take it. So it'll be very interesting. Alistair Keon saying, morning all, it's all just clickbait. Alistair, I'm not sure about that, I think there might be some elements of truth in there somewhere, certainly in terms of where the stories are coming from. I don't think they're just made up, put it that way.
I agree with that as well. Like initially I might not have, but I mean, if it's getting reported in certain outlets, like I don't think we should be an issue of shooting down our journalists as well, because they'll have their sources. Everyone has their sources. So
yeah,
if they want to go with that, then they obviously they think that's the case. I wouldn't say it's merely clickbait at this stage.
Yeah. Is there any updates on Jose Cifuentes? This one seems to be dragging on for an eternity. What I would say is that we reported a few weeks back that Cifuentes was coming along nicely, and I don't believe that there's been any issues there. But I was told at the time that it was quite a complex deal, and there was still a bit to be done, not to expect anything soon. So I have no concerns that one will get over the line. I don't think there's any doubt Jose Cifuentes is a major target for Rangers. But I think there's other elements going on behind the scenes that need to be ironed out. I think the next one will obviously be Cyril Dessers. He'll be in today or tomorrow, I think, unless something goes wrong. We were expecting him yesterday. It's not quite panned out like that, as can be the case with transfers. So once Cyril Dessers is in, I think there's a possibility the Cifuentes is next. Potentially also a defender coming in. But I think Rangers, by all accounts, would rather have a couple of sales under their belt by that time. And I can understand why, because significant money has been spent, especially when you look at the wage bill, on adding all these players that have come in. So
he actually
very, very interesting to see how they balance that.
So he played last night for LAFC. I think he came on in the second half. I'm pretty sure he played the whole second half. They played the LA Galaxy last night, and it actually broke the record for a MLS game. I think it was 80,000 there. So that's quite interesting. But so yeah, he played last night. So I think if a deal was imminent and a fee being agreed and that sort of stuff, then I don't think the deal would be risked by the player playing. So like you said, I think that's maybe a little bit further away. I thought it'd be moving on that this week, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a few more comments coming in. I've got to say thank you to David Christie, who's a new member on the channel. Obviously, you can join our membership. There's 3 to 5 extra videos a week. You obviously get these videos when you're not watching them live ad-free, which is, I get a lot of feedback, people saying there's too many ads in the videos. Well, this is a way to avoid that. And of course, you'll get priority when it comes to your comments. So you'll notice a lot of the guys that we're taking comments from, primarily, if they ask a good question, they are in, because clearly they are members. So that's very important to us, helps us out. So they get that priority. So there's loads of reasons to join up to that. I'd also say, guys, while I've got you there thinking about these things, I will flash up our sponsors, Seneca. They are the best there is when it comes to hair restoration. You have any issues at all in the follicular department, then these are the people to go to. It's all done by professional doctors. You'll be given a consultation, very, very well looked after indeed. They are literally the best there is, and someone who will absolutely make sure that you get the best care possible. Some major rugby stars have already had some work done with them and are extremely happy with it. So go onto their website, Seneca, and have a look at what they do, because if you're needing to get some work done up on top, they are the people to do it with. There's no doubt about that. Right, get some more of these comments, get stuck into them here, because there is absolutely tons. I'm actually struggling to keep up with all the stuff that's coming in there. David Christie's popped us an extra £1. Thank you for that, David. Lots of you asking questions. James Strachan asking about Josh Maja. I mean, Euan, that's an interesting one, because Maja, it's been widely reported yesterday, he is now free. He has extricated himself from this situation at Bordeaux and is available. But let's be honest, when it comes to Josh Maja, if that interest from Rangers remains, they will not be the only ones.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of competition for Maja. I think it's a case at the moment where it could be the case that Rangers have to shift one out before bringing another striker in, just because we talked about it yesterday with the options that they've got in that area of the pitch, that quite well stacked. Obviously, there's the interest on Danilo, which is kind of on the back burner at the moment as well. But like we said yesterday, there's interest in both players. So I think another striker will come in during the window. I think you're looking at a centre back. At least this is if no other player leaves, I think a centre back and a centre midfielder will definitely come in. Then I think if a player leaves, you could see more movement, certainly at centre back and up front.
Getting a lot of comments about this. Jonny, Demo and Alistair gifted 10 memberships. Deserves a massive shout out, and Alistair done it yesterday as well. Listen, I don't really know what this is, but I trust that Aldo, the sniper, who knows these things inside and out, will tell me in the comments and explain it a little bit more, because nothing's flashing up. But if that's the case, Jonny and Alistair, thank you so much for that. And apologies, Alistair, you didn't get a shout out yesterday, if that's the case. But we're all new to this membership farrago here on YouTube, so we're just kind of getting the hang of it, and these things are coming up and we're like, what's this? And I need to go and investigate it the next day. So thanks a lot, guys, for anything that you've done adding to that. I will investigate it. And yes, I will talk about it tomorrow quite in more detail, put it that way. You see John Nash there saying thanks for the gifted sub at Demo. So that sounds amazing. Sounds fantastic. Thank you for doing that so much. Got Denzel Merrick saying, hang on, Jonny, what's this about website subscribers? Listen, we've got a website, obviously. Many of you support us on there. But we're also doing some extra stuff for YouTube channel. It's as simple as that, Denzel. The membership, you just join. There's a join button on our homepage. It's $2.99 a month, and you get various extras, including ad-free content and some extra videos. So that's what we're doing. Aldo's explaining it to me now in the comments. He's saying, yes, they gifted it. You can do that as well. Has become a member yourself. I'll keep you right, bro. You always do, mate. You always do. That's why we like you in the comments. Any faux pas, any mistakes, he's always on there just correcting us, which is handy, Euan. I'm not going to lie, because occasionally he's helped out in some moments where me or Derek has said something utterly ridiculous and we've been corrected. James Skeen asking, look, is there any news on Tom Lawrence? Well, Euan, Tom Lawrence, I was told will be back involved heavily by the end of pre-season. It's an awkward one for Lawrence, because you'd obviously want to be in and about the team right now, making an impression, getting your fitness up, but he's going to join a little bit later. And that's why I've been a bit, I suppose the word would be cautious, even though I really like Tom Lawrence as a player, because I feel like there's a concern that what happened with Yanis Hadji could happen to Tom Lawrence. I feel like Yanis Hadji was a victim of circumstances, really, more than anything else last season, in that when he returned from injury in January, it was very, very difficult to get a guy who hadn't played for that long in the team, get him up to speed. The games were thick and fast. There weren't any sort of early rounds of the cup for him to get himself back to full match fitness, I suppose, more than anything else. And I worry it could be the same for Tom Lawrence, especially when you look at the level of competition in that number 10 slot. You've got Lammers, you've got Cantwell, you've got Hadji, you've got Lowry, you've got Lawrence, you've got Dowell as well. It's not going to be a joke to get into that Rangers team as number 10.
Yeah, so Tom Lawrence is back out in the grass at the moment doing kind of individual training. He's not joined up with the group yet. That's the same as Kamara Roof as well, who's in a kind of similar situation. I think, like you said, I think it's important to not rush Tom back, given last season I think he was nearing coming back, wasn't he? And then he kind of sustained another injury. I don't know if it was a recurrence of the same injury. I thought it might have been a different one. But yeah, it's important not to kind of rush him back and be cautious. And like you said, there's a lot of players in that position. So Rangers are well stacked in that kind of attacking midfield role. I think for Tom Lawrence, it's a case of just making sure when he comes back, he comes back in peak condition. And then he's got to build his match fitness, which will take another couple of weeks. So I think you're looking at maybe, I don't know how far along he is, but he really wants to try and get some minutes in pre-season, I'd imagine, but I don't see him starting a game anytime soon.
Yeah. Dave Fulton said Lawrence will have the League Cup if he needs games against lesser teams. It's not that many League Cup games when you think about Rangers missing out on that early league format version of it, because obviously they're playing in Europe, so they don't get involved in that. I think it's going to be quite difficult for Tom Lawrence, but listen, he's got quality. I think mentally he's a strong guy, so if anyone can do it, he can do it, but I suspect it's going to be quite difficult for him regardless.
Just on that, John,
sorry?
I think this is a problem with the kind of B team situation, and obviously Rangers wanted the Conference League and they want something like that in the future, because I think something that Michael Beale touched on last season, one of his press conferences, was what do you do with players who are coming back from injury or aren't getting minutes, like first team players. They couldn't play in the Lowland League last season due to the rules, so it's difficult, because how do you get them minutes if Rangers can't really afford to, if a player's not fully at speed, they can't really chuck them into a European game or a big Scottish Premiership game, so it is a bit of an issue. How do you get these players minutes in competitive action?
Yeah, absolutely. Got a question here, or a comment actually from Demo. Found the Jack Butland interview really good. He wants to achieve great things with us. I'm in total agreement. I thought he was very professional, very eloquent when he spoke yesterday. Comes across like a guy who's been an England player, frankly, someone who's used to the limelight of the Premier League, and very confident. And just what you want from a goalkeeper, a stable personality. I know Alan McGregor was had a lot of personality, and over the years there's been a lot of keepers that have been a bit wacky, but Jack seems like he's a very sort of stable, calm guy, and I think that's ideal. That's what you want in terms of your defence, isn't it? Somebody you can rely on week in, week out. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can match that brilliant start in terms of the media on the pitch as well. And if he does, he'll be in very, very good shape indeed. Got a comment here. Any word on Stephen Davis? I know he won't play again, but is he fit? Well, I wouldn't be so sure about that, I think Rangers want to give Steve, they don't want a club legend like Stephen Davis going out the way it looked like he might, which was via a training ground freak accident. So I think they want to give him every opportunity to get himself back physically right and able to play, and then make the decision about whether or not they can give him a contract till the end of the season. Now, you just don't know at that age. I think Stephen Davis is 38 now, how they're going to react to a level of injury that is significant. There's just no way of sugarcoating it. Yanis Hadji, when I asked him about it, he said, ACLs are no joke. And I absolutely believe that. Now, it's not as bad as it was back in the day when Ian Durant suffered it and was basically put out of the game for 2.5 years. But there's still a serious injury, and it does keep you out for a long time, and you don't just bounce back overnight. So for me, Stephen Davis, given every opportunity, as the Rangers legend that he is, as the Hall of Famer that he is, to leave in a better manner than crumpling on the training ground and never being seen again. I don't think that's the right way. So I completely back what the club have done with him. And hopefully, come January or February or March, Stephen Davis is in a position where he can come back and play 5 or 10 games and hopefully in what is a title-winning team. Because, again, let's just be honest about Stephen Davis, Euan. He's never had pace. His game's always been about controlling and being a metronomic presence from the base of midfield. A guy who can thread the pass, who can keep things ticking over, who moves the ball quickly. So, I don't know. I don't necessarily see him being a guy that can't slot in and be an asset for certain games in there.
Yeah, so I think Rangers, firstly, what you said is correct. I think Rangers are doing right by Davis. What he's given to the club over the years, and just how he's held. He's massively respected around the building and stuff like that. And I think we're looking towards the end of this year before he even returns to training. So there's no kind of rush to make a decision on that, because, like you said, you don't know how he's going to respond to an ACL. But I think it was interesting what Michael Beale said last season about Davis, that he would have been a big part of the tail end of last season, and also the 5 sub rule as well. It kind of gives you more options, and I think Michael Beale said that as well, that Davis, if he comes back, or he would have been last season, is maybe the sort of player you bring on in the last 20 minutes of the game, just to kind of help control the game. His game management's very good. He's very good in possession, so he's also very experienced. So if a game's a bit hectic at times, then I think you'll see that's a Davis would have been used last season. I think he'll get a contract to the end of the season, to be honest. I think you'll see him play maybe, like you said, 5-10 games, majority of which will be off the bench probably. But it's a nicer way to go out than ending your career in a training ground accident.
Yeah. Quite a lot, and this is the last topic before we call it a day. Quite a lot of people coming in to talk about optimism, Euan, and it's quite interesting because I think Rangers have just had a really good pre-season so far. New broom sweeping through the club, quite a lot of changes. A young, fresh CEO at the helm, a talented manager who's a renowned coach in charge, knows the game, knows certainly Rangers and certainly what's required in Scotland. And they've done their work very ruthlessly so far. You've got WATP there saying, we need to get off a good start. Celtic will spend big on a player. Of course they will. But at the same time, there is a sort of sweeping optimism, I think, and people can disagree with me if they don't feel that. But people saying they're quietly confident, people saying that they feel that there's an excitement about this new Rangers team, and I can totally understand that. Celtic, they're looking like they're going to have to go through something of a rebuild. They've lost Jota. They've got a new manager coming in. I think there's going to be another Celtic player, from what it sounds like, who might be heading out. There's been a lot of noise around Rio Hatate. So, is there cause for serious optimism, Euan, or should it be tempered, given the amount of money Celtic are going to have to go out and spend in that market?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's from a Rangers. Just look at it from a Rangers perspective first. I think it's understandable why there's a bit of optimism. Michael Beale's got his business done early. I think there's still another couple to come in, but he's made a good start in that regard. I think everyone understood after last season that a sort of rebuild was needed at Ibrox, and I think Michael Beale's put the wheels in motion there. I think the age of the players that have came in, a good age profile. I think you can tell that he's looking to build a physical side, an athletic side, which I think bodes well. So there's reason to be optimistic. I think, I don't want to say the fixture list has been kind on Rangers, but it kind of has in terms of the start of the season. So I think it's imperative that Rangers get off to a good start in the league and set a marker down. Listen, this is no disrespect to other teams in the league, but Scottish football is a duopoly, isn't it? There's 2 clubs that will be going for the title, so you're always going to be judged against against your rivals in Celtic, and they've only really lost one player at the moment from their strongest 11 in Jota. I know Aaron Moyes left, but I think Matt O'Reilly's a really, really good player and a good age at centre mid. There's obviously talk over Hatate, there's talk over Lila Bada, and like a few of the comments are saying, we don't know what Brendan Rodgers is going to do in the transfer market. All indicators point to they'll have a massive budget, so it's all about how he spends it. I can only imagine that Rodgers was told that he had a big budget when he was having talks with Peter Lawwell about coming back to Celtic, and you only imagine that's been reinforced by the money that Celtic received from Jota. So yeah, they are going to spend big money, but it's about who they spend that money on. There's obviously been examples in the past where clubs haven't spent well. You look at, I think it was Tottenham when they sold Gareth Bale for 90 million and they brought in 6 or 7 players, and I don't think any of them were a success apart from 1 or 2. So, it's great having the money, but it's all about how you spend it.
Yeah, indeed. Finally, Blue Cafu saying the height of every player signed is over 6 foot. That gives me confidence. Absolutely true. Jack Butland, 6'5". Even Kieran Dowell, we talked about him as a number 10, 6'1". Lots of height in there, lots of power. The one player that's linked, I think, that's not as tall as Cifuentes, 6'9". Danilo's 6'5". Sorry, Cifuentes is 5'9", and Danilo, who's been linked, is 5'8". Those are the 2 players that are more diminutive. But everyone else, big, strong lads, and believe you me, that is absolutely deliberate. No doubt about that. Rangers will want to power over the top of Celtic this season, and it's a well-known, well-understood element of Scottish football. If you've got the physical power to win the battle, then you can allow your quality then to take root and take hold, and that should see you through and see you over in many games in the Scottish Premiership. Right, we've done 36 minutes, 37 minutes now, so we're going to call it a day there. Thanks to you all for joining us. I have a video scheduled for this afternoon. I don't know when it will be going up. That'll be for members, but it might be later on. Unfortunately, my daughter is a wee bit ill today, so I'm having to look after her this afternoon. So she's not going to her childminders. These are the things you have to go through as a parent. Bit of a pain in the backside, but there we go. Listen, thanks to all of you. Thanks to everyone who continues to support the channel. So many of you are doing so. It's really very, very, very humbling indeed to see so many of you help support us and support what we do. We can't do it without you. The more of you that support us, the more that we're able to produce. It's as simple as that. So yeah, get on there and join our YouTube channel and help us grow. It's as simple as that. And we'd love to do lots more content, lots of different style of content, and the more that we grow, the more we can do that. So thank you all, especially thank you to the guys that have donated memberships to people. That's fantastic. I'm going to look into that so I can understand that a little bit better for next time. Until then, guys, thanks and enjoy the rest of the